Welcome to Maverick Mindcast. I am so pleased to welcome back my guest, Cathy O'Brien. She's the author of Transformation of America, PTSD Time to Heal, and Access Denied for Reasons of National Security. She is an MK Ultra survivor, if you haven't seen our first interview. And she's probably one of the only high profile victims in this program who's actually come out, named names, told her story unapologetically and fearlessly. So I adore her for that. And I'm so happy she's able to join us here again. Hey, Cathy, how are you?
Great. I'm so happy to be back. And I really appreciate this opportunity to converse with you and share this information with so many others because you have a lot of deep insight. And I think our first interview got censored really bad
On
because I
YouTube.
said, all because I said that it's possible to heal from any level of mind control. That is not medical misinformation. That's a fact. That's something we've all been born with. It's within us all to heal from whatever we endure in life. And it's such an exciting fact that, um, yeah, I'm really excited. People need that information. They simply need to remember that we have these abilities within ourselves. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you are just a brilliant testament to that because you're one of the happiest people I know. And some of the people I know have the worst things ever happened to them is maybe stubbing their toe. So and they're like Eeyores. So, you're definitely an amazing person and a testament to true healing. And if anyone's interested in healing too, the PTSD book is awesome. I mean, I know usually we wait till the end for this, but I just want to promote that. You can get it on Cathy's site. We'll talk about that at the end, but definitely you also are so generous with your information, your experience of how you healed and, how others can heal themselves, get past the trauma and live really happy, fulfilled lives, despite maybe suffering for a long time. So thankful to you for that.
Oh, I'm grateful to Mark Phillips for releasing the information. He was working the highest levels of mind sciences and found pertinent information on mind brain function that is innate to us all. We're all born with it. This is something we have a right to consciously understand so that we can safeguard our free thought. Free thought is so sacred because without free thought, we don't have the ability to stand up for what we believe in. Without free thought, we don't even know what we believe in and don't know our own truth. Without free thought, there's no free will soul expression, no strength of spirit, So it's imperative that everyone reclaim their free thought and start living their life's purpose true to soul. That's why I'm happy because it's an exciting privilege that we're all born with. It's our birthright, and we all need to reclaim it and start living it because life is such a joy when we live in harmony with our life's purpose, in harmony with each other, live the love we are in light of truth and freedom. But it starts with free thought. That's imperative.
Yeah, I agree. And just to add to that, I want to say truth is imperative. I think once we get to the
It
point where
is.
we can acknowledge our free thought, we can then accept and espouse more truth, because
Absolutely.
there seems to be this disconnect. When you do tell truth, people seem to dislike it more than like resent it, more than appreciate it.
I think mind control is such a sliding scale that everyone's been affected these days since mind control masked as a virus was unleashed on humanity for ushering in the New World Order slave society agenda. So everyone's experienced. And plus, this is a really, really traumatic planet in many, many ways. And many people are abused. And now so many have lost loved ones to what's been imposed on humanity to thin the population. And it's horrific. People are traumatized. They need to reclaim their free thought because that's what we all need to know is that trauma is the basis of mind control. And when we understand that, that's when we safeguard our free thought and shut off TV. Don't let them manipulate our minds and our perceptions so that we can think free. Once we have our free thought, we have an ability to know our own truth. And once we know our own truth, we can discern truth around us. But until we have that free thought and know our own truth, we're just swaying in the wind with whatever the media is telling us to do. However, we're being manipulated on a subconscious level through the constant barrage of traumas that we're all experiencing these days. So it's so important to have that rudder of free thought and knowing your own truth, because with that comes all the strength we need to be able to respond to what's going on in our world today. And that's another reason why I smile all the time, because now that I have reclaimed my free thought after 30 years of MK Ultra mind control, I'm so happy to be able to live my freedom and be able to respond to what's going on around me. Under mind control, I couldn't think to respond, but now I can. And to me, that's what responsibility is the ability to respond. And taking responsibility for our own lives and our own freedom, for our communities, for the integrity of our lives and protecting our children. That's everything. It's so amazing what we have when we just have that one little piece of the puzzle, how important it is to safeguard our free thought when trauma occurs.
And as you were talking, I just had this idea in my mind, like didn't expect to bring it out. But we're just in such a deficit of courage right now. I think we're so afraid to acknowledge things. And when you were talking about trauma, it's so important, I feel, that everyone understands the varying levels of trauma. Because while people may not have gone through the experience you've gone through, which was absolutely horrific, trauma wise, sometimes turning on the TV is traumatic. And
Yes.
when I say it, like a courageous acknowledgement of trauma, not using it with the leftist ideology of I'm a victim, oh God, I turn the TV, I'm traumatized, I'm a victim. It's using it as, oh, I kind of see what's going on here. Like I have been wearing a mask for 2 years and I'm clearly traumatized, or I have been, doing things that I normally wouldn't do because I've been told so many times I'm going to die, or,
Mhm.
there's this deadly virus or whatever it may be. But we need to come to a point, because I don't even feel we've even begun that point, where we can acknowledge trauma in its everyday state. Because I feel like every day it's a constant attempt, a full-on attack to traumatize people. You turn on the news, you turn on the media, and we don't even understand that that's the point of it. Like we just think, oh, what's the news, or we're just, what's going on today, but it's just very traumatizing, especially if you're consuming this kind of content hours per day every single day for years on end. How do you think we could do that? Like acknowledge it, but then say, not happening anymore. Empower ourselves, not disempower ourselves, once we realize, like, yeah, we have been exposed to a certain level of trauma.
Yeah, it definitely. Truth frees us from fear. And as I said, fear is like the basis of mind control, the trauma is. That's why we're constantly barraged with it. Negativity is immobilizing. And this is an attempt to keep us all immobilized and so
Mhm.
frantic in our own selves. It's like our conscious mind freezes in fear. And when it freezes in fear, it doesn't have an ability to respond and do something about it. Whereas truth frees us from fear. And when we understand our own mind brain function, and that's what's happening with our brains, we can safeguard that. And then we can know what's going on in our world and respond to it in light of solutions. And I spell solution with an SOUL, solution, because when Mark taught me to voice no negatives without a solution, he was helping me learn to think free with that little one little rule that I live by today. Because if I can't voice a negative without a solution, I can't just sit around and complain and gravitate more of the negative and go down that rabbit hole, that black hole in negativity where it just starts sucking everything in, and it's just a horrible immobilizing place to be. But if you think in terms of solution, it forces the brain to fire in new directions. It forces the brain to fire beyond what the media is bombarding us with. It forces us to think beyond the horrors of what's been done with flinging our borders open to human trafficking and what's going on with the child sex trafficking. That's um, the most money generating, lucrative business on the planet. That's absolutely horrific fact to face. So, what's the solution? The solution is to raise awareness. The solution is to take action and start making a difference in our own backyards, in our own communities, where we can affect the change that we see. With Mark Phillips, who was an intelligence insider that had found this information on healing being suppressed, and it had been for generations. He was so outraged by all that. He was outraged to see trafficking going on in and out of the White House. He was outraged to see that pedophilia was being used as the most traumatic mind control agenda there is. Trauma is a basis of mind control, and pedophilia is known to be the most traumatic effect on the human brain that we can experience. That was found way back with the Hitler-Himmler research. And it was that Hitler-Himmler research into the effects of trauma on a child's mind prior to age 5 while their brain is still forming that made me a target for MK Ultra mind control. It's what thrust me into the project. So that's the most horrific trauma. That's something we need to acknowledge. And when we acknowledge that reality, then we say, no wonder this pedophile agenda, this sexualization of children, this so-called gender confusion is being promoted so hard in our school system. Our school system has been taken over by an obvious indoctrination agenda for creating a slave society for the New World Order. This has been going on a long time. And when we realize that, we go, all right, I'm running for school board. I'm going to go bring the school back down to local level and be part of what used to be like the parent teacher association, where the parents would go in and we're interactive in the school system, so we make a difference there. Stop the pedophile agenda from being pushed on our children. Stop the injections from being forced on our children in a school system. Get the masks off the children so they get enough oxygen to their brain necessary for critical analysis free thought. So while we're facing these harsh facts, these components of MK Ultra mind control that we're all experiencing these days, when we face that fact, then we can think in terms of a solution. So we don't just ignore the negatives of the world and la-di-da somewhere out in airy fairyland, because that's not going to get anything done. What's going to get it done is to voice no negatives without a solution. Think of that solution, get active, go do something about it. That's going to make the difference. And realize that sitting there on social media with a one-liner is not changing the world. Nobody even cares what that says. And it amuses me to think, what would happen if social media applied the rule of voice no negatives without a solution, and everybody had to have a solution if they were going to complain? Because people
Be
complain
pretty quiet.
Yeah, they complain their fears like it's news, and it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the only way at this point people will really have to, be forced to confront it is if someone like kicks in the door and shows that act happening at that time. Because I'll start talking to people and they just immediately shut off. I was telling you before we started recording that every time I've read your books and, obviously have conversations with you, and every time now that I see any of these high-powered people who you have, named in your books and what, told all the horrific stories of what they've done to you, like Dick Cheney now, with his daughter out there, he's been stepping out into the spotlight again. And even Reagan, I know he's passed away, but see, I just can't, I come undone. I have to tell people. So if it comes up a conversation about Cathy O'Brien, this person is a horrible person. Don't like these people. They're not even to be considered scumbags. They're beyond that. It's just
They are.
amazing to me that they're still in positions of power. They still have a voice in our nation. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so aggravating to me. But when I start talking about it, a lot of people just shut off. They're like, oh, I can't even think about that. Like, I can't think about kids getting, you know, used in that way or tortured in that way. And it's like, but if we don't, I mean, it's not happening to you. Like, why? Why is it so uncomfortable for you? I mean, I understand in theory why it's uncomfortable, but if we don't acknowledge it and we just keep our heads down, that's exactly what they're hoping we'll do, because it is such an uncomfortable subject, because it is so, I think it's even traumatizing to be told about those kinds of things, like in detail of what's happening out there. Because it seems like it, because the reaction is like the immediate turn off. It's like, okay, I don't want to hear this, and it's like, but you have to want to hear this, because if this doesn't get out, and if people don't unfortunately get some idea of what's going on, which is why I love your book so much, because it does go into like painstaking detail. And sometimes I was like, oh God, no. Like, I kind of knew where things were going. Once, you get reading, you kind of know where these people, these abusers, have to take it to
Yeah.
the next level, the next level, the
Yeah.
next level. But you got to keep reading, because it's, that's why I love the way you've come out. You've just been so graphic and so specific, and you've named names. And, before we started recording, I was saying, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of human trafficking and started looking at other victims. And a lot of them would take the stance of, well, I don't think it's important. It's kind of like bygones be bygones, to name people and to talk, even though these people were very powerful, they were politicians or they were businessmen or whatever. I don't think it's important anymore to name names. I'll just tell my story. And to me, I mean, I just can't accept that. I'm like, no, it's really important. Even if they're past, they've passed away or whatever the case, people need to know who these people are. And that's what I think special about like you and David Icke. He puts people on blast all the time. He's historically done that. He'll just say that person, that person, that person. Because if we can't go there, we can't really expose what's going on. What's your
If we
thoughts on
don't,
that? Like people who choose to be more quiet, like they'll reveal one side, but not the other.
it's imperative to know who's involved so that we can undo the damage they've done on our society, especially if they're high level perpetrators, like I was exposed to in the Washington, D.C. swamp, seeing where the roots of corruption were planted in the FBI, in our so called Justice Department, how justice has been eroded under the guise of national security my whole life. My father received immunity from prosecution for sexual abuse and child pornography of me in the early 1960s because he was going to sell me into MK Ultra mind control, and they put national security on the case. He was released and freed. So we've had a manipulation of our justice system a long time. We need to know that. My owner in MK Ultra mind control, U.S. Senator Robert C. Byrd, was in office for over 50 years. He ran Senate appropriations. He made sure money was allocated to areas that were going to promote and sanction human trafficking, pedophilia, child abuse for mind control purposes, and to ensure that it was going towards the funding mechanism of the New World Order slave society agenda. The New World Order has been creeping in a long time. I mentioned Democrats and Republicans alike because there's no party lines, there's no gender lines, there's no racial. The New World Order perpetrators are a handful that appear to be larger and more of them than there are because they have control over the media. Follow the money, and it's going to the same people every time, whether it's the media or politics or anything in corporations and any kind of control, big pharma. I mean, it's the same people over and over and over again at the top, and we need to know who these people are so we can undo the damage they have done to our society and the erosion of the integrity of our society and the moral values that they've been manipulating for so long. I mentioned people like Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, because he was founder of the occult temple of Set proliferating on our military bases. I understand he's left the planet, I hope. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
think he's passed away.
I've heard that, but whether he has or whether he hasn't, I'm saying just the same, because little children had to pick it. And I posted this on my website now in this article I just did on the FBI. These little children are holding signs saying, why does the FBI protect Aquino? Because he was caught in the Presidio daycare scandal, the Marin County daycare scandal. All of it was being covered up by the FBI. The FBI, keep saying FBI. Why? Because I'm naming them. We need to know that they are in place and corrupt for a reason of ushering in a new world order slave society agenda. Senator Byrd had an office in the FBI building so that they could set up the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which was a catchnet operation for human trafficking. These are things we need to know. And as I name people and name the events, and the graphic details were for Congress, I never meant for that to reach people. But when national security was invoked on my testimony in 1995, Mark and I released it in book form to all members of Congress, made sure that other members of Congress made sure they all had a copy of the book. It had all been validated by clean members of law enforcement and intelligence, and they needed to have that information. But I tell all of that because we need to know where the problems are in order to make a difference. And still, in my healing process, Mark was very, very adamant that what is remembered is not near as important as how it is remembered. And the keys that he handed me for being able to reclaim my repressed memory and open the neuron pathways back up in my own mind, remember all those things I've been tortured to forget. The way to do it is by picking up a pen, not talking to people, not telling people about it. Pick up a pen, write it out. What that does is it uses the logic part of the brain to move a pen. So it shifts the information over to logic. We need to get this writing back in our school system because it's a way of processing information. It's an important part of our critical analysis in our own brains. So that was imperative for being able to heal without getting emotionally overwhelmed or reliving the traumas that I experienced. Writing it out on paper, because it's in the logic part of the brain, makes
Was
it
that
much
not painful though? I'm just curious, like when you, like a lot of the stuff in the book is just so intense. Did you feel pain a little bit when you were reliving it through writing, or no? It just seemed
no.
you were
Well,
removed from it.
there's a point of torture anyway where there's no feeling anymore. And
I guess you
I
just shut
think,
down.
yeah, people lose their ability to feel. And even
So
to the
sad.
point where they can't feel it they can't even feel their own skin anymore. They don't see themselves in a mirror. Depersonalization becomes so strong that it is a factor in mind control that once we recognize that that happens, we can look at people with really bright colored hair and really weird makeup and stuff. They can't see themselves and they're trying to see themselves. They have all these piercings and tattoos all over. They're
I was
saying,
just
I
talking
can't
about this.
feel.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
someone else,
So,
a friend of mine.
oh
How it's
man.
just everywhere now. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
why?
It's
Like, that's
mind
not you.
control.
It's not you. It's
Mhm.
like, just be you. You don't need all this stuff. It's almost like, don't look at me. Cause you're so busy
I
looking at all
know.
this other stuff that you can't really pay attention to the person. It's almost like a piece of art in a museum. You're just looking at it, but you're not looking at, like with them, you're not looking at the person. That's so weird that you brought that
Yeah.
up because I was talking
The
about that. And we're
the
normalizing
person's
this too,
I
which is like,
know,
I
because
mean,
we don't
whatever, free will, you
understand.
could do whatever you want, But I'm just starting to see like clones. They're just
Yeah.
pumping out, everybody's covered in it is a degree, to a degree, it's self-mutilation, you
Yes,
know?
exactly. When we've recognized that, we can look at people like that with compassion rather than snap judgment. When we look at them and see the emptiness in them and see them marching to whatever the new world order is projecting at the moment, to, wear your mask, or support Ukraine, or be scared of the planet now, be scared of,
Monkeypox.
and what, yeah, money pox, yeah, whatever the fear of the moment, they're going to be gravitating to it, and they'll be out there, because they're not thinking, they're under mind control. It's a level of mind control, and it's one that, when we recognize it, we can start, having compassion for people again. And when we have that compassion, realize that going up to somebody and screaming in their face, well, you're wrong, blah, blah, they can't hear over the program. The program is so loud in their ears. Anything we have to say is not going to reach them that way. They're going to need to heal. And the best way that we can inspire them to heal is by living freedom ourselves, living strength ourselves, smiling, living true to soul, living love and caring and with compassion. And they don't even know how to respond to a smile. I did a lot of that with, through the whole COVID thing, because I never wore a mask, and I'd be smiling at people, and it made a big difference. They'd rather see that than someone in a mask. And I was never once shamed. I wouldn't have felt shame anyway, but nobody said anything to me ever. And I never lost any freedom. If we all live our freedom with joy and celebration of that love and the life that we get to live, we're all on this planet at this moment in time for a purpose and a reason. We need to know what that is and start living it. Not stop hiding at home. Stop re-traumatizing yourself with TV narrative, and start getting out in society, talk with each other, reach out to each other, live freedom, start making a difference, change what's going on in the school system so that we're not cranking out more of these, little empty robots. We need to reclaim our humanity. Having been around those perpetrators, they are a dark energy force that is afraid of our human spirit. They're afraid of our power of love. That's what they can't control that. They know that's where our strength is. They know that once we realize that truth, we remember how united we really all are. And we're united in love and purpose and reason for being here and celebrating this life. And our numbers are way more than theirs. They don't want us to remember that. They want to hurry up, divide us, and keep us from talking to each other, anything to make it look like they're the root. They're a handful of dark energy force that has no business
Exactly.
meddling with our brilliant minds.
It's frustrating because it's just, I'm wondering, like, when will that tipping point be? Like, I know what needs to happen because you went through that, but I'm like, what will it take? Because this administration right now, it's amazed me that I think maybe now that you're talking about, like, when I said, do you feel pain? And you're like, oh, it's, you just numb yourself. You just anything, you can't even feel your skin. I'm like, is that where we are right now? Like intellectually or, psychologically? Because just every day it's one thing after the other, like the constant assault on the American people. I can't speak for other countries because I'm not living there. I'm sure they're experiencing it too. But in this administration, it's just every day something else. And yet I still feel like people just sit, and like, oh, all right, fine, whatever, moving on, gas prices, gender stuff on children, vaccines, it's just, they're just assaulting us, which we talked about that in our last conversation. But my shock is more so of the reaction of the people, not the actual evil entities, because that's what they do, like psychopaths are going to act like psychopaths. But it's just, like the fact that someone like Anthony Fauci gets the luxury of retiring in December, it's like, mind blowing to me. Like, and he'll probably be commemorated, and, you know, they'll have a ceremony for all his work that he's done. You know, it's just like somebody like RFK Jr. comes out with a book, an expose on Fauci, nothing. Like, because I'm always in the alternative media. So every time something's going to come out or break, every person is always like, this is going to be it. Like, you know, this is going to be the tipping point that awakens this, you know, this time, no, this time. And it's like a broken record. Nothing happens then. Like, you know, and it is shocking, and they're right to presume that's what's going to happen, you know, like that'll be the tipping point, because it is shocking. It is horrifying. It's like, oh, this is an outrage, but yet it never seems to happen. So I'm like, what is our tipping point? Like, when will enough be enough where all of a sudden the human race turns on and says, ow, that did hurt actually? You know, is it just we're so steeped in trauma, kind of like you said, I mean, you talked more on a physical level, but I think just on a psychological level, are we so steeped in trauma that we can't feel anything anymore? And no matter how bad it gets, we can see it's bad, it's going down a very dangerous path, but we're just like, remember Dunkin' Donuts, gotta make the donuts. That's a really old commercial, but it's just like, gotta wake up, gotta make the donuts. Like, you know, just trudging ahead on autopilot. So I wonder, I'm like, will it be in your lifetime? Will it be in my lifetime? Will it be alive to see that moment where finally it breaks open and everyone's just like, enough is enough? You know, how much more damage has to be done before we get to that point?
Mark always reminded me that healing is a process. It's not an event. It's not going to just have a sudden one day. It's a process. And the process that I've been witnessing happening across the country since the early 90s, when people were waking up to what global education was in the school system, what Common Core really is all about, the indoctrination of children, the rewriting of history, you know, the all that was going on. And then as people woke up, the militias started forming, and then the media would, there'd be some horrible trauma hit the whole nation, you know, Oklahoma City bombing, Waco. There were so many back then.
Yeah.
That would happen. And every time the media would say it's a malicious attack, to the subconscious mind, it said militias did it. You know, so it was the same reversal going on then. And people were getting outraged, and they woke up more and more and more. And it's been a slow process, but it has been happening, because 2016, we actually overrode the algorithm of the rigged electronic voting machines. Those machines have been rigged since their inception. And the sheer numbers of awake people did that then. So they became frantic, and they imposed Trump, you know, because they needed to regain control, and, you know, and all that effort. So we're going through this phase of them freaking out, them knowing that they lost their grip. We are still going through the phase of them trying to hurry and rush things ahead. In the process of them doing that, they're tipping their hand. They're showing more and more people. People are waking up more and more every single day. And I think one of the most important pieces of the puzzle that people need to know today is the Hitler-Himmler research into the effects of trauma on the human mind of sexually abused children. Because after 3 generations of sexual abuse, it becomes autogenic in the brain. That means it becomes a part of the thinking process born into a child. So the sexual abuse of children is so horrific in incest-based families. It's so horrific. The children are compliant and easily led. And then the next generation, by the 3rd generation, whether the baby is abused or not, the baby is more compliant. So the brain actually changes. It changes the way that we think. Any belief system, any information, any knowledge just becomes autogenic in the brain. It's going back, you know, it's like why doctors ran in families, or the shoemakers were in families, you know, that it was a family thing. It was more than just a business. It was what was in the brain and what they knew to do. When we understand that our brains do that after 3 generations, and consider that we've had 3 generations indoctrinated in the school system, we have some significant healing to do on that level as well, so that people stop complying, so that they regain their strength of spirit. And that can happen. In my case, I was multi-generational incest based and easily led in that regard. But the the human spirit's stronger than that. Soul is
Definitely.
stronger than genetics. And when we realize that, that comes back to us when we reclaim our free thought. Then we have this the strength of spirit and the expression of soul again. And that's where we reclaim our strength and our ability to think free and undo the damage that's been done from generations of imposed abuse. So since this has been going on since Nazi Germany, when they brought that information into the United States with Project Paperclip, the National Security Act covered it all up so that it could go on behind the scene. And the information on mind brain function, like what happens with the 3 generations of knowledge and information and abuse or whatever kind of indoctrination. When we understand that, then we can undo it. But we need to know that. We need to consciously know that so we can start that healing process. So people are waking up. They've got these pieces of the puzzle, and that pieces of the puzzle. And we got to go deep to fix this piece of the puzzle. And it's happening. We're not being told this by the media because this information is just now coming out. It's in PTSD Time to Heal. That is the otherwise classified information that we all have a right to know and a need to know. Mark could not release that information. He was bound by laws of sedition from his high levels of intelligence.
I love how he's accountable. Meanwhile, all the people who've done atrocious things or have zero accountability. It's so frustrating.
And
he has to walk a fine line.
Yeah, yes. And I don't have to. I'm not bound by any laws of sedition. And he gave me the keys to my own mind. And really, what it is, it's like PTSD Time to Heal is a reminder. It reminds us of what we're born with. It reminds us how resilient we are, and that healing is a process, not an event, that it is happening, that is within us all to heal. And we just need to remember how. And writing is a key part of that. And there's many tips in there. Getting out in nature, breathing in the air, get in touch with nature again. It kind of regrounds us. That's why they're trying to scare us about the planet now. It's
yeah.
How arrogant. Mother Nature's stronger than all of us, and she'll buck us all off this planet before they're gonna,
exactly.
These people and their fear mongering is so silly.
Yeah, humans are awful, even to each other with this, we talked about the 6 feet last time and, 6 feet under, but it's just like, people are now afraid of people. I realize I've been traumatized because sometimes I'll see a picture and not everyone's wearing masks, if it's like a corporate environment or, a game or something. And I'll be like, oh, wow, look at that. No masks, no rules. It's trauma. Cause that's so normal. That's not weird. That's not unique. That's the norm. But yet sometimes, not saying I think they should have anything, but I'm just shocked that the media puts that out there, because I feel like even now in commercials, people have masks on. It's very subliminal, but they've changed a lot of just very subtle things to kind of reinforce this new normal thing, a lot of commercials and stuff. And so when I see them showing normalcy, I get kind of like, oh, look at that. That's progressive, because that's where we are right now. It's insane to say that we ever believed that if you're too close or you're in a room full of too many people, you're going to die. Just on its head, it's absurd when you just say it out loud.
Yeah, I know that. And what we've done to the children through this curve. You know, children
Exactly.
need hugs, they need interaction with each other, and you know, these beautiful aspects of our innate humanity is something that we need to reclaim. And as people are waking up, we're making the changes. The awareness is the first step towards the positive, necessary changes that are occurring now. People are getting back out in society, they're interacting with each other, they're reaching out to each other again, they're realizing what has happened to us. Now, as we move forward, can you imagine knowing now what happens with 3 generations? If 3 generations of people thinking free, living love, reclaiming their strength of spirit, reclaiming their amazing physical capabilities of healing within our own bodies, our immune systems, our bodies, minds, and spirits are so resilient. We get all that back. And as we go forward after 3 generations of living that, we're going to accelerate humanity so far, so fast. It's this spiritually evolutionary time. We're going to raise the whole vibration of this planet, and these low dark vibration perpetrators won't be able to stand it. They can't exist in light of our love and us living who we truly are inside. But we need to remember that. And PTSD Time to Heal really is reminds us. It just helps us all to remember who we really are, how to remember past the trauma and remember to start living our life's purpose. The fact that we're on this planet right now, at this moment in humanity's history, at this moment in time, we all have a big purpose and we all have a big meaning for being here, and we all need to start living it. So I'm seeing people waking up, and it can be discouraging if you look at TV and even ads and the social conditioning, you know, going on there. Kind of get away from all that. Get out in nature. Pick up a pen. Vent. You know, what is your fear? What is your trauma? What is stopping you from moving forward? And you'll write it all out. Add a solution, and you're going to find that your brain starts firing in new ways again, the way that it's supposed to, and it'll open back up from the imposed traumas that we're being bombarded with today. It'll help us rise above that fear and negativity, rise above the immobilization and negativity to where we can respond again and take responsibility for our own lives and live our own freedom.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, it's weird. I know this is a bit of a change of subject, but as you were saying certain things, especially with the Quino, I was thinking about Ted Gunderson. And he had brought up, I think he'd spoken to a mother who was very outspoken, like Johnny Ghosh.
Yes.
Yeah. And what I found so tragic about that case was how insidious the abuse was. So not only were you abusing these kids, and I actually, it seemed allegedly like the father was involved in the actual capturing of his own son, because it was like the one day his dad didn't drive him to his paper route, that's the
Yeah.
day he was abducted. And the kid who actually helped debate him and abduct him spoke out. I can't remember his name right now, but he was a huge, outspoken person and talked about kind of how this all works. It's like they then make the victims abusers, which is crazy to me. Like, they have to do the things that were done to them once they get to a certain age, and it kind of like entraps them in that circle. Do you know what I'm talking about?
To a degree, and yes and no, because, and from my own experience, knowing that my daughter was abused was so traumatic. It was more traumatic to me than any physical torture that I could
I
experience.
can only
It was
imagine.
more horrific than anything. So for many, it works that way, where there's no way that they could perpetuate the abuse. But then there's there's this other aspect of things, like Michael Jackson was MK Ultra, same Project Monarch that I
Exactly.
was,
He was
same
on my mind too.
multi-generational, yeah, same one. And he was um, sexually abusing little boys or whatever. If Michael Jackson had been able to think free, is that what he would have chose to do? Was he abusing
That's
those
my
children to
point. Yeah.
perpetuate abuse, or was he a child himself at the time doing what he did as a child at that time? There's this compartmentalization of traumatic memory in the brain. And if it's triggered open and accessed, then that's all that part of the brain knows. That's what that part of the brain is going to do. So if he's triggered into that mode, that's what he would be doing. Everyone needs to be able to reclaim their free thought and open those neuron pathways in order to stop the abuse cycle, in order to stop that from going on. And by everything that I knew about Michael Jackson, he would definitely have wanted to make sure that the children weren't hurt and didn't go through what he did. He did all he could to draw attention to what had happened to him as a child. And that wasn't being heard.
Did he ever
So,
talk about sexual abuse? I feel like he didn't, but he kind of alluded to it.
well, and his sister did too. I mean, there's been a lot of information come out that's been suppressed for a long time
That's
on that
interesting. Yeah.
particular. Yeah. And the more you know, the more you see. And the thing is, what do we do in a situation like that? It's like the same Ronald Reagan. You know, you look at what Reagan was talking about when he went into the office of president. He was talking about a constitution. He was talking about freedom and what it would take to preserve freedom and everything else. As soon as he was elected into the presidency, there was an assassination attempt on his life. The assassination was because he wasn't cooperating with the New World Order. He's going to be eliminated one way or the other. He was wanting to do national sovereignty instead of New World Order. So they were going to control him one way or the other. And since he didn't die from the shot, then his mind was controlled to a large degree after that. I know that. I was in the White House and around Reagan and Bush ran Reagan's administration. Bush and Cheney treated Reagan like dirt. They were wicked to him. And what would Reagan have done? Would he have sold us out to the New World Order? Would he have put global education into the school system? What would he have chose to do had he been thinking free? I don't know. And I know that Reagan wasn't like them. He had an energy completely different than Bush and Cheney and all. It was different. But I don't know what he would have actually chose to have done. He never sexually abused my daughter. He wasn't interested in children. And it doesn't preclude the fact that he had definitely had some issues that he probably would have had. People aren't always black and white.
That's why I brought this up.
Yeah.
It's so complex. It's so hard to get your head around. So complex. That's why I brought up with, the Johnny Ghosh and the kid who was saying, well, that's what they do. They make you, like, he had to bait Johnny into the van to get him, because he was a young kid. He wasn't an adult. So the kid trusted him, who knows what he said, but, and then he was told he had to, like, rape and do things, that he had to. He didn't have a choice. I mean, he was basically a prisoner. So it's so complex because, then they breed that into people who just are so helpless. They don't know what to do, and Michael Jackson to me seemed like a very fragile soul, just innately, like he was a fragile soul to begin with. And they just took advantage of that. And he was also very talented. He was, it's sad when he used to talk about, like, hey, I was like 5 and I was supporting a family of like 10 or 11 people. Like I was the breadwinner. I was 5. It's hard to get your mind around that. Really. It's just like, I read a lot of books about him. They were as children, doing gigs at strip clubs, and, their father just didn't care. He's like, hey, if it gets us out there, it gets us out there. And, gosh only knows what else. But
well, you look at like Reagan and realize that just because someone's in a position of of authority like that, our politicians and everybody else, they're still susceptible to mind control when trauma is extensive enough, or whatever they have electronically and harmonically these days that could
Mhm.
affect the thinking of politicians. So we need to be real mindful of this going forward, and to realize that when we see trauma occur that is horrific as an assassination attempt, to realize that, you know, that person's very vulnerable at a time like that. They may be taken over and easily led. I'm so fortunate that Mark understood all these intricacies of mind control when he rescued me, because I had been forced to participate in drug and human trafficking across open borders, the horrible things that I was forced to do under mind
Yeah.
control, um, deep in the swamp, and being trafficked myself to and from different government leaders, and having to work for those perpetrators to the degree that I did. Uh, that
Suffer.
that that was horrific to me. And Mark said, "You're not responsible for what you were tortured to do under mind control, but you are responsible for every move you make going forward.
Mm.
Now that you have conscious awareness, you are responsible for your life. You're responsible for all your actions. So make sure that everything you do is true to soul and your free choice." So that was a big responsibility in my healing process, because I had to deal with so much and what my daughter was going through. And yet I was able to realize that it was almost like having a clean slate on what I had been tortured to do to what I'm going to do going forward. What I'm going to do going forward is live love. They're not going to get one more bit of fear out of me. They're not going to get any bitterness from me. They're not getting anything from me. I'm I have no fear of them. I'm going to live love. I'm going to tell truth. I'm going to tell it in enough detail where people will be able to get it and understand that we need to all regain compassion for each other and help each other reclaim free thought, free will, soul expression. And it's very simple. You held up that PTSD time to heal. It's really thin. There's not
Yeah,
that
for
much.
sure.
It's easy to self apply. We can all do it. And we can all reclaim that freedom and then empower others to going forward, because this is very pertinent information. Knowledge is our defense against mind control, and we've got to have that knowledge in order to recognize it around us, and in order to help others be free, and in order to protect our sanctity of free thought vigilantly from now on.
Yeah, no, agreed. And just one more person I want to add was that you put a very interesting perspective on someone like Boy Bush when he was president, uh, George W. Bush. Like, how you'd seen he had endured a lot of abuse and, you know, um, I never really got the impression that, I mean, I don't think he was a good president at all, but I never
No,
got the impression that he was a sinister person. It seemed like he was just bewildered his entire presidency. And when you talked about him, and then just when they show that tape when he's informed about 9/11 and he's reading to those children, and you just kind of see the look on his face, it made me think of that. He just has this very far off, like shocked, but like desensitized look. And yeah, it's just such a complex thing, where we think everyone in power is just abusing their power and whatever, but it's not that simple, unfortunately. I mean, because we'd all love things to be very simple and straightforward, and then we can proceed from there and form our own opinions and judgments and sense of truth. But it's just not, because it's and I think that's what's so powerful about like sexual abuse or just abuse and trauma is just there's so many layers to it. There's so many, you can't take anything at
there is.
face value.
And we need to look at like the Bush Clinton dynasties and
Mhm.
and people like that, and how they're doing the generational thing too, because they know that 3 generations, information is autogenic. So if they're adhering to the new world order, they're passing that down, passing that down, passing that down. And if somebody's not just naturally adhering to that, then mind control is brought into the equation like it was on Bush Jr. So, mind control is used by these perpetrators on their own kids, and so that they can control a nation. And they're also keeping it in the bloodline um, in order to maintain a control. Like Pierre Trudeau was very much behind the pedophile agenda, and very much behind that for MK Ultra mind control purposes for the New World Order. He was part of that all along, and I knew that from personal experience. It's in my testimony for Congress. And then you consider that because he knew so much about mind control of individuals and of nations, his wife at that time, Margaret Trudeau, Maggie Trudeau, was from what everybody around me discussed, and was a presidential model, MK Ultra mind control slave, which means she was being prostituted to various government leaders. There's no telling who Justin Trudeau's real father really is.
Castro. He looks just like him. It's insane. I mean, you put the side by sides. I did a podcast on like we'll discuss that a little bit, and it was just like, are you kidding me? You just can't, like, you can't not at least say, because they look so, and there's so many pictures of his family together with him when he was a child and before that. So,
add the MK Ultra sex slave part into it, and it's pretty obvious what's going on. The fact is, Justin was still raised by Pierre Trudeau, who was an MK Ultra mind control master. What does that make? What does that make Justin Trudeau? Is he MK Ultra? Is he like his father? Is he like his father? Is he like his mother? Or is he a combination of both? What level? It raises questions, and it gets us looking and say, wow, there's not really that many evil people on the planet. There's something being perpetuated very deliberately in these family lines. And it's something we need to start factoring into the equation on all political agendas, and realize these family lines, and take a second look at all of that. Stop the dynasties. We've got to, we need to stop that for sure. So, mind control is the common thread weaving through society's traumas and difficulties, and the controls that are being imposed on us. And once we understand that, the knowledge that's our defense against mind control will be knowledge that's going to help us evolve into a future of freedom, and that allows for us to live in peace and harmony with each other, stop these wars, and stop the violations against our planet. The people who are telling us that we need to stop eating meat or whatever because it's bad for the planet are flying to these meetings in these mega jets and chugging there in their mega yachts. They're polluting so much. It's just, they look at their actions, not their words. And we need to apply that to all politics on every level, from local levels on up, and start taking responsibility for our own lives, govern ourselves, live our life.
But I think subconsciously they've done a number on us to think, well, no one will ever come out and say, well, they are kind of better than us, so they can do that. But you can tell they think it, like, if not consciously, subconsciously, because I'll say all this stuff to people and they just go, well, I guess. But it's just like, I do feel we believe, like, all right, I guess they do deserve to do that because they have money or they have power, and they, it just never seems to bother people enough as it should, because it is true. Like, how can you go wagging your finger at us and then you're doing 10 times more what we're doing? And I don't even know if that stuff is as bad as they say it is. But, or you look at like China, who all those factories, all that pollution, and they don't have any accountability. But if you or I take a shower, the world's, we get in our car and drive around the block, we're evil and we're destroying the planet. So, and so many people fall into that trap.
Mark always said arrogance would be their downfall. And they are so arrogant and think they're better than us. I mean, they say it all the time, you know, and they refer to us as useless eaters and, you know, just whatever. But they say it so blatantly now that more and more people are going, what? You know, and they're waking up to that reality. So they're so arrogant that it will be their downfall. It's happening now because they're tipping their hand. We're seeing beyond their illusions now. They aren't. They. Why are we even following leaders we didn't elect? You know, these self-appointed leaders
It's
that don't even
crazy.
pretend to be part of politics, or you know. And yeah, we need to get back to source and find our strength and um, take back our humanity and start living true to soul.
Yeah, I always say if you put these people in a lineup, it's it's laughable. It's like these guys couldn't even get a girl to dance with them at the prom, much less a date. And yet we're like cowering in fear of these people. Like they're so great and they have so much power over us. And they're like these anointed demigods that we're supposed to worship. I mean, you look at like put a lineup of like Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, Bush, all these people, and it's kind of laughable. like in like if you saw a guy like that in reality, would you be like, oh, no, you just be like, all right, next. What they would just blend into it's just like crazy how because something's presented to us on a screen, and I'm always wondering what is it about that? It's so hypnotic. It's something's on a screen, we just think, oh, well, it must be some divine something or other, because really that's the only thing that separates any of these people from, and a lot of them have fraudulent histories like of
Yes.
being this great entrepreneurs and discovering these. No, they were born into privilege. So they bought that privilege and they presented it as their own discovery. Like there's a lot of speculation around Microsoft and even Elon Musk, like they always say, oh, these people are so brilliant. But it's so funny because you can be like, well, what's so brilliant about them? And most people can't even answer the question. They're just like, well, they have this company and they blaze this trail. And it's like, yeah, but what did they do? And can you prove that they even did that? Do you know that they did that? But we're just being told like, these are the great minds. These are the great thinkers, this is who you're supposed to admire and try to emulate. But there's really not a lot to back up there.
Mark always said it's easier for people to believe in something outside themselves than for them to believe in themselves.
That's
And it
amazing.
comes with knowing your own truth and your own inner peace and strength of spirit and that love and that light. And when people reclaim their free thought, they'll stop looking outside themselves to someone else, directing their lives and holding all the answers. They don't hold those answers. They only pretend to. And the fact that they are on a screen was a major part of MK Ultra right from the get-go when television came on the scene, because I'm old enough to remember the process of that from the old black and white days and all. But the thing is, it's deliberately intended to be hypnotic. You got harmonics and you got light flashing, and they know how to use imagery and to manipulate the mind with repetitiveness. That's the main thing. So we see these same people over and over and over and over. And as we see them over and over, we feel like we know them or something. It is a brain trick. And you're right about the screen, because when Project Paperclip brought in the Nazi and fascist scientists, and they were pulling together MK Ultra on a higher level. They were taking what the Catholics knew about the effects of trauma on the human mind from the Spanish Inquisition and Crusades, combining it with the Hitler-Himmler research and what they knew from the effects in Nazi Germany, and taking that and adding technology to it. And at the time, the biggest technological advancement was television, and they knew how to use that flashing. Here comes Disney, first thing, right from the onset of all of it, with Project Paperclip, and here it comes, and they're setting up the pedophile agenda right from the get-go through the subliminals that are so easy to project through television. So we've got to understand our own mind brain function so that when we do watch television, we know what's going on in our mind. And then that way we're just naturally, safeguarded against that intrusion and that repetitiveness that makes us feel like we know someone. We saw Madeleine Albright and Hillary Clinton constantly on TV. Madeleine Albright is Secretary of State, and way prior to that, head of the Organization of American States. She was setting up human trafficking and child sex trafficking so strong as a funding mechanism of the New World Order down in the Caribbean. And right there, that eventually evolved into Epstein Island and the whole thing. It's like where they meet to discuss business, fulfill their perversions, and blackmail each other in the process because they don't trust each other either. They got to have each other by the blackmail, of whatever perversions that were going. Madeleine Albright, heavily involved in all of that. Hillary Clinton, heavily. I know that from personal experience. And yet nobody saw beyond the way the TV portrayed them as we see them over and over and over again. We'll find out they're as vile and evil as anybody has ever been on this planet. What they have done to humanity, what they have done to generations of children from what they established and set up. These are things we need to start paying attention to.
Yeah.
Look beyond that surface TV screen to what they do. Stop listening to what they say. What do they do? We need to look beyond that in order to start effectively taking back our lives and restoring any integrity to politics, if that even can happen.
So much of it is all just an illusion.
It is an
It's
illusion.
Almost like a dream.
They know that.
It's almost
They know
like
it is.
dream.
They're like the wizard behind the curtain pulling the levers to create this illusion of being great and powerful, Oz or something, when in fact, pull back the curtain and it's just them pulling their media levers to manipulate our minds and to make themselves look like something that they're not. We need to start watching their actions and seeing what they're really doing. And what they're doing is so harmful to our children that none of us would stand for it. It's why they're using mind control against humanity. They know there's no way we would stand for any of this. So they can't suppress our spirits. They can't possess our spirits, but they can inhibit our expression of it by controlling our minds to where we don't think to express it anymore. So now we got to reclaim our free thought. It's key to the whole future of humanity. It's key to reclaiming our birthright to live life's purpose and live the love we are, reach out to each other with compassion and care and help each other wake up. The Great Awakening is happening on a global scale. You can see it in spite of controlled media trying to downplay it. It's still happening. And we're at such an amazing point in history, such an amazing point in humanity's future that we have no time to lose in reclaiming our free thought. Again, PTSD Time to Heal empowers us all because it's within us all to heal. And it just reminds us where those abilities are within us all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we can just prevent ourselves from getting seduced into like these illusions that they're, and actually I noticed now that you're seeing it more in movies, like where the character will be put into this like dream like world where, say, I've seen it so many movies actually, where everything is what their heart's desire would be in that scenario, and like maybe they lost their parents and there's their parents and they're like, oh honey, we've missed you, and they're hugging them, and like everything that their hearts desire. I think I remember this was Harry Potter, this other series, The Witcher. Like it's all it was even in Game of Thrones where she lost her husband and her son, and there they were sitting there, wanting her to come to them, and each time the character had to pull themselves off the ledge and say, as much as I want to stay with you, I can't stay. I have to go back because I have a life. Like the reality is waiting for me there. It's like, I feel like we're always being seduced into that. Like, spend 10 hours on TikTok or, watch this show for 2 weeks straight and don't leave the house, because it's like, we're so drawn away from real life. And it's more and more people are like, oh, I'm so lonely, it's so hard to meet people, make connections. And it's all there though. Like we think in this mind
I
of scarcity, but if you turned off the fantasy
yes,
and went
yeah,
outside, there's a million people out there that you could just start talking to and interacting with. But we're so fearful of that now. It's like, why would I talk? I don't know that person. I would never go up to them. I'd never say hi to them. Sometimes people are afraid to smile, like you were saying, at other people, like strangers. So we've really just strayed so far from who we are just in those tiny little ways, those habits.
yeah. We need to break those habits and walk away from the social media for a while, and we'll find that no matter what we were focused on, in that just the energy of it affects our thinking, and we get tranced in it. When we get out in nature, even if we don't want to go interact with people for the moment, then get out in nature, go hug a tree,
Yeah.
breathe the air, listen to the birds, listen to the squirrels, and watch how nature interacts with each other, and we'll remember how to interact with each other again, because nature's our nature, and we need to get back out, and it's a good stepping stone to get away from the distraction of these this technology. And and um oh, but now I'm going to totally contradict myself here and say that trance movie. There's a movie called that just came out. It's Trance, that movie. It is the Cathy O'Brien story, but it's about
Awesome.
it's about us all. It's about human trafficking. It's about mind control and slavery. What the New World Order is really all about. How we're all being affected by the media, which is why I brought the movie up. And I would encourage everyone to see it because there's so much information in it. I was so thrilled with the way that Adrian Youngblood pulled the whole
You
thing
did a
together,
great
because
job.
I had to pull my life together, my brain together, and to have someone doing a movie of that was weird to me. I wasn't, because what's important is that people learn their own truth, that they learn the truth of what in the world is really going on these days. And Adrian made all of it happen. She pulled it together so beautifully. I'm so happy with that aspect of it. And I think it will help people to understand the importance of getting back out in nature, reclaiming our free thought, picking up the pen and paper, uh, get that back in our school systems, and start interacting with each other again, because eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul, that's where we communicate the best. And that's what we need to reestablish in our society. We all need to do it and just get away from the hypnotizing, controlled media nonsense. Whether it's a so-called positive show or not, it still trances our brain. We need to get it firing in other directions and exercise our brains in new ways again.
Yeah, and if we're solitary creatures, there's no way we are. I think the evidence is that
Yeah.
we look at a television almost as a companion. Like people come home, they turn on the TV, even if they're not watching it. It's just a person talking. It's a very passive interaction, but we get thrown into these worlds and we get so, like, some people are so endeared to these characters. They could tell you everything about their lives. They could tell you everything about the storyline and the history, and they're not even real. But then you say, like, oh, when's your mom's birthday? And they're like, oh, I don't know. So it's interesting because clearly we have that inclination to connect, even if it's virtually or even if it's just
Yeah.
through fiction. We have it. It's so ingrained in us that I, so many people are like, I couldn't live without a TV, because they don't understand that, yeah, you're correct in what you're craving, but you're going to the wrong place to get it.
Yes.
Like, it's right out there. You don't need a TV to make that connection or to stimulate that part of you that's seeking that connection. And so it's just interesting. And I think because time and time again even though we think we don't know ourselves, you can just look at how we behave and what we do. Everything about what we do shows who we are. It's just how we look at it. You could turn it upside down and then say, oh, it's not that we're genetically predisposed to be addicted to television. It's we're genetically predisposed to make connections. When people are stuck on their phone, what are they looking for? They're looking for likes. They're looking for text messages. They're looking, but all of that is connection. Like, oh, they liked my picture. Oh, they commented. They said something nice. Oh, they text me. They're thinking of me. Like, that's all connection. It's just, unfortunately, it's an illusion because it's not real connection. It's just words on a screen. It's not going to produce anything at the end of the day. So, we are consistently true to ourselves. We just misinterpret all these cravings and instincts that we have. And unfortunately, the way we're interpreting it right now is very detrimental to our souls, I feel like.
If you said it so brilliantly, and it's all about our mind brain function, and the way, once we understand that, then we can direct it in in the ways that are going to make a difference with, human interaction, instead of with a screen, or with a word or two on a cell phone. I don't even own a cell phone because I'm
Good
so,
for you.
I just don't have time for that. I am busy interacting with people and helping people reclaim their freedom. My life is dedicated to that. Um, Mark and I, that was our whole motive all along, was just to help people reclaim and retain their free thought. And I'm going to continue doing that the best way that I can. And it's much easier to do with human interaction.
Right? It's so
Yeah.
much easier to do. And that's who we were born to be. That's what we were born to do. So I really hope that component comes back. Even,
Yeah.
as I was complaining about people who, oh, I can't hear about the human trafficking stuff. I don't want to talk about it. That right there is another indicator how compassionate we are, how connected we are, how
Yes.
just hearing about another person, especially a child being in pain, pains us, even though we have no direct connection to that experience. It's not, maybe it hasn't even happened to us. We have this innate, but unfortunately, once again, I feel we're misplacing that discomfort, to me, should be transformed into indignation. Like, this is crazy. No, enough is enough. Like, how do we stop this? Like, it needs to take a different form, not a, oh, I feel really uncomfortable. This is painful for me to listen to. Let me stick my head in the sand. So, like, we have all these great innate instincts, but we're unfortunately misreading them, and our reaction to them is just going horribly astray, to the point where we're just asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, with so much information being suppressed for more than 3 generations, we've lost some. Um, I think we've lost the rudder, or the discernment, or the distinction, to know that it is human interaction that we're all craving. Having traveled around the world as much as I have, people everywhere all want the same things, no matter what language they speak, no matter what their culture and society. People all want peace and love and happiness, and a safe place to raise their kids and be able to feed them. It's just,
Yeah.
it's innate human behavior that we can get back to when we realize our own truth again. But we have to reclaim free thought first, and take that first step, and then just continue the progress. Again, it is a process, not an event. So it's going to take some time, but every step of the way is celebration, because every step is progress. And that's a celebration of life in itself.
Yeah. And pain oftentimes is just a signal to act, it's not a signal
Yes.
to retreat.
Yeah.
It's telling you something's wrong, fix this, and we collectively, I think we feel so much pain because I do think we're so connected, even though we don't want to admit that. Like, sometimes you just feel pain. Like, I think COVID was a perfect example, or even 9/11. I just remember being like so depressed for a week or two after that happened. and no, I didn't know anyone who passed away. You know, I lived in New Jersey at the time. So even when I was driving to work, I could see the skyline was just completely covered
Oh,
in
wow.
dust and clouds, and seeing no planes in the sky because they grounded everything. But nothing happened to me. But I felt so heavy, like such a burden on me, you know, and that's, if that doesn't tell us something, you know, it's, there's a difference between negative and like unpleasant things. And, you know, obviously dwelling in or being around people who dwell in negativity is not the way to go. But when painful things come up, that's our time to act. That's not our time,
Yeah.
you know, and even if it's not happening to us, we're just so connected that we just feel it, you know, we feel it. Like when you were telling me you lose the ability to even feel your own skin, I almost like teared up, and I've never had that feeling before. But it's like,
It,
you know, it's just so like to want to deliberately render a person to that point is to me just like
yeah.
atrocious. No one should ever feel that,
Compassion
you
is a
know.
beautiful thing. And I think compassion is really what you're talking about. And it's like people lose that first with any level of mind control. And a level of mind control would be maybe not wanting to know that truth. And when when we lose our compassion, then we get caught up in much then we cave into allowing things to go on. But compassion is empowering. You know, we turn that around. And it's like when I have compassion with what I see, then I want to make a positive difference for them. Going down where they are, I can't lift them from there. But if I stay, live in the love and the strength that I am, then I can reach and lift them in light of love, because that's an infinite strength and an infinite ability to face the reality of what they've endured, and to be able to have that compassion, to look at somebody who looks kind of scary, you know, on the surface with all their,
Yeah.
you know, and to realize that they're screaming out, you know, help, you know. When people can't think to ask for help, they'll scream it out in different ways. And when we have the ability to have compassion, we can hear that plea for help and be there for them. And sometimes one word can make all the difference in somebody's life. Just one moment of caring, one hug, one reaching out will make all the difference in the world. And we all need to get that back and start caring for each other again. It's okay to have
Yeah.
compassion, and it's okay to care.
Yeah. And it's okay to tell your story. And, you know, shame is no place. Shame just
Yeah.
disables us on such a staggering level that we can't do it. We can't get anything done once that happens, you know? So, I got dramatic. I didn't want to do that. I got
Oh,
emotional.
you're
Sorry about
so
that.
sweet.
But, yeah, I mean,
Ah,
is there any, I thank you so much, Cathy. I mean, you're just such a treasure. And like I was saying before, I hope to meet you one day, because we're talking about all this person to person stuff. So I know you've had a couple live events that you've been a part of. And what's in the future for you? What should everybody be looking out for?
they'll be posted on my website, you know, where if I'm doing an event somewhere, it's on trance-formation.com. My
Okay,
books are
great.
there. My blog is there. My interviews and, you know, discussions with beautiful people like you. I love talking with you. I love our discussions
Thank you.
and
I
where
love
we go.
talking with you
And
too. I think
yeah,
about you a lot, trust me, because I saw everything, you know, your story is so interwoven into the fabric of this country that it's like, you know, so many things you see, people, places, and it automatically makes me think of you. And then I always have to tell people, I'm like, listen, my friend Cathy, she has a book, and this person and this person, and they're just looking at me like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, and if she was so wrong, why hasn't anyone come after her?
in the
You know,
early
because you have to
90s,
talk to people like that, because they're just like, oh, well, that's kind of out there. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, if it's so out there, why is it still out there? You know?
In the early 90s, speaking out, people had no point of reference for the information. So I didn't expect them to, but I needed to raise awareness because my daughter's circumstance, so I
Yeah.
kept, I kept speaking out, and I considered it seeds of truth planted because people didn't want to believe it. That was like, well, who does want to believe? Nobody wants to believe this.
Nope.
But we share this planet with a very dark, negative energy force, and we need to stop following them. So I'm going to keep speaking out and consider seeds of truth planted, because truth never goes away, and it always, people start seeing it eventually. So um, even if they can't handle that little seed of truth right from the get-go, they will.
And I always tell people, conversely, put yourself in someone like Kathy's shoes. Do you think, you know, who wants to go and tell the world about all the things that you endured? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with it. It is what it is, but it's like, that's hard to do. Like, you're not just going to
Yes.
wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm going to make up a whole story about this, that, and the, I mean, no, that's the thing. People look down on whistleblowers a lot, but I'm like, what do they have to gain? Because it's some, you have to play these games with people
Not
to get them
money.
to get out of their, yeah, to get out of the mindset of what the media tells them. Oh, they're cuckoo. Oh, they just want money. Oh, they just want attention. It's like, really? Like, do you think would you go that far to get a level of attention for, and talk about all these things just for the heck of it? Like, I don't think so. Like, to me, this stuff's very private and it's intense. Obviously you're doing it for an altruistic reason, not because what is the true pleasure of disclosing all this stuff? I mean,
Oh
there's
man,
definitely a
it's
mission,
not.
but
Yeah.
it's not pleasurable in any
Uh,
way. And oh, by the way, if anyone's interested in more in depth of Kathy's daughter story, I would say this book was great for that. Access Denied for Reasons of National Security. But this is hard stuff to
we,
confront, and much less to the world.
well, consider that that testimony was released in 1995, and it told the Bush Clinton line of presidency before they ever went into office, because it was already that was the plan, to keep it in the Bush Clinton dynasties. There's so much information packed in Transformation of America that's coming true today. And it's like, if it hadn't been censored under national security, maybe people could have been aware enough to stop this, what we're having to go through today. Maybe we could have stopped this before it got to this point where children became the most lucrative business in the world. Maybe all that could have been stopped if censorship hadn't been on that information. But when you consider that it was out in 1995, that either makes me a psychic, or I
Yeah,
really was
exactly.
right there and knew that stuff. And we need to face that truth. Senator Byrd said that good people don't think to look for this kind of criminal activity. That's so true. They don't think to look for it, and they don't really want to see it, but they're living it today. It's in their face every moment, every day. The traumas, the constant barrage. We're living it right now. So we need to wake up, reclaim our free thought, free will, strength of spirit, and um, realize that truth makes us free. It frees us from fear, and it empowers us to be able to reclaim the lives that we were intended to live in light of love and peace and harmony.
Yeah, and don't ignore that nagging feeling, because I know a lot of people have that nagging feeling inside, like something's not right. Maybe I don't know what it is, but something's just not right. You know, Acknowledge it and see where it takes you. That's how I got on my journey. I just felt something was inherently wrong during the COVID narrative.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and then it took me wherever it needed to take me. But instead of kind of like pushing it down and just like, everything's okay, you don't have to
No,
do
it's not.
anything. You just have to listen. I feel like the minute you become receptive, your path will become clear to you. It'll be illuminated, and you'll know where you need to go and what you need to do and what you were meant to know and how you were meant to do something with that knowledge. So, I mean, clearly look at you. I mean, you and Mark have
Clearly.
I think you have such a beautiful love story, because it's like, I always say, I love this expression, like, you give somebody a fish, but it's better if you teach them how to fish.
Yeah.
And I love that, because a lot of relationships are oftentimes predicated on, well, this person saved me and I can only remain saved in their presence, or, with them by my
Right.
side, or with them telling me what to do. And, the real value is in, okay, like I can show you what to do, but then you're going to learn yourself, and you're going to have the tools to then function regardless of whether I'm here or not, and you'll be the person you're meant to be, and you'll come into your own. So I think that's important too, because we oftentimes rely on, we have this hero complex, which I'm sure he was your hero. I'm not trying to, in any way diminish that. But it's just, obviously how joyful you are, even after losing the love of your life, person who made the most impact in your life, is a testament to like how amazing that relationship is, to me anyway. Because
Yeah,
that's so
definitely
important.
that, because he wouldn't really have anything to do with me until I healed. He said, I don't want you a piece at a time. I want all of you at once. And so that love, again, great motive for healing. And we were 100% in our
Mhm.
relationship. We weren't 50-50. We weren't reliant and pulling. And we were very strong in who we each are individually. And that makes for the best relationship. Now that was, yeah, it was an absolutely phenomenal relationship. And when Mark passed away, my heart didn't break in two. It swelled to double size. I carry his love with me every step of the way. And again, love is the most powerful force in the universe. And that is a truth that we all need to embrace.
Yeah, you're amazing. But yeah, always see the admiration and the love in your eyes when you talk about Mark. But then I also see like Cathy in her own right, and the strong person that you are in your own right. So that's a beautiful thing. And I think that's sometimes hard to achieve when you've come out of a really traumatic situation. It's natural to want to, latch on to another person to make you feel safe and secure. And, I just never saw that with you. So I think it's pretty amazing.
That's because people look outside themselves
Yeah.
for the answers when the answers are within. When we heal from within, that's that's our innate strength. That's where we stand so strong. So it's within us all to heal, and PTSD Time to Heal reminds us how to do it.
Yeah, definitely. If you can, you have a great deal on your site where you can get all three books together in a bundle, which is what I did. But yeah, and definitely get it if you can. I mean, I know these books are on Amazon and things like that, but I personally think it's better to get it direct from you on your site. Who knows if they're censoring things or leaving
Yeah.
things out. I think you said that was an issue at one time. So if you can, can you just repeat your website again? I know you brought it up before.
It
Great.
trance-formation.com. That's TRANCE hyphen formation.com.
Okay, great. Cathy, thank you so much. Yeah, and if you want to see what events or sign up for a newsletter, I'm signed up for your newsletter, and I often get a lot of updates on what you're doing and what's going on in your world, which I'm always interested in. So if you like this conversation, guys, definitely like it, subscribe, share, please share. I think this stuff is so important to get out there. Obviously a lot of these conversations are censored and don't have huge platforms to get the word out. But if you can do that, especially sharing, it would mean the world to myself. And I'm sure it would mean the world to Cathy too, because that's what she's
Absolutely.
devoted her life to doing. Um, Cathy, thank you so much again. I'm sending you a virtual hug.
Thank you.
Always so happy to
I
hear from
appreciate
you.
you.
And I really hope that, we can talk again soon. And I wish you the best with everything.
You too. Thank
Thank
you.
you.